Good day. Here is the information we gathered about the region of Tacloban City and its literature, the population number, culture, and its common tradition. Before I start, may I introduce myself? My name is Iris Pagayanan. As of for now, here is Mr. Ronald Bautista to discuss this region and history of Tacloban City.
Tacloban is a capital and seat of government of the Eastern Visayas Region 8, Philippines. It is approximately 360 miles and 580 kilometers southeast of Manila. It was the first city in Region 8 to become a highly urbanized city, and it is largest city in terms of population in Eastern Visayas. It is also the regional center of the Eastern Visayas, being the main gateway by air to the region. Tacloban was briefly the capital of the Philippines from 20 October 1944 to 27 February 1945, and the extensive survey conducted by the Asian Institute of Management Policy Center released in July 2010. Tacloban City was ranked among the top 10 most competitive cities in the Philippines. Tacloban ranked 5th overall and second in the emerging cities category. On November 8, 2013, the city was largely destroyed by Typhoon Haiyan, having previously suffered similar destruction of loss of life in 1894. History of Tacloban. Tacloban was first known as Cancabatok, an allusion to the first inhabitants, Cabatok. They established their dwellings in the vicinity of the present-day Santo Niño Church. Others who came later were Comoda, Caragin, and Murao, who erected their own settlements in nearby sites. Urao's domain in the hill where the city hall now sits. The combined settlements acquired the name Cancabatok, meaning Cabatok property. By the end of the 60th century, Cancabatok was under the political administration of Palo and part of the Spanish of Pasay Samar. It was discovered in 1770 by the Augustinian mission, who were succeeded by the Franciscan in 1830. During the period Cancabatok was renamed to Tacloban. The change of the name came about in this manner. Cancabatok was a favorite haunt of fishermen. They would use a bamboo contraption called taclob to catch crabs, or shrimps or fish. When asked where they were going, the fishermen would answer to Tacloban, which means the place where they used the device to catch these marine resources. Eventually, the name Tacloban or Tacloban took prominence. It is not known where Tacloban became the municipality because records supporting this fact were destroyed during a typhoon. It is commonly believed that Tacloban was officially proclaimed a municipality in 1770. In 1768, Leyte and Samar were separated into two provinces, each constituting a politico-military province. Due to its strategic location, Tacloban became a vital trading point between the two provinces. The capital of Leyte was transferred from one town to another, with Tacloban as the last on 26 February 1830. Tacloban's decision to make Tacloban the capital was based on the following reasons: ideal location of the port and well-sheltered and adequate utilities. On 20 June 1952, Tacloban was proclaimed a charter city by virtue of Republic Act number 760. The arrival of Colonel Maury in 1901 made him the first military governor of Leyte. His first official act was the opening of Tacloban port to world commerce. Before World War II, Tacloban was the commercial, education, and social and cultural center of the province of Leyte. Copra and abaca were exported in large quantities. The leading institutions were Leyte Normal School, Leyte High School, Leyte Trade School, Holy Infant Academy in Tacloban Catholic Institute. In November 1912, a typhoon swept through the central Philippines and practically destroyed Tacloban. In Tacloban and Capiz, on the island of Panay, the death toll was 15,000, half of the population of those cities at the time. On 25 May 1942, Japanese forces landed in Tacloban, signaling the beginning of their 2-year occupation of Leyte. They fortified the city and improved its airfield, since San Pedro Bay was ideal for larger vessels. The Japanese Imperial Naval Forces made Tacloban a port of call and entry. This time was considered the darkest in the history of Tacloban and the country due to the incidences of torture among civilians, including the elderly. In response, guerrilla groups operated in Leyte, the most notable of which was the group of Roberto Cangnil. Leyte was the first to be liberated by the combined Filipino and American troops. General Douglas MacArthur assault troops landed in the Tacloban and Palo beaches, White Beach and Reed Beach, respectively, and in the neighboring town of Dulag, Blue Beach, on 20 October 1944. This landing signaled the eventually victory of the Filipino and American forces in the fulfillment of MacArthur's famous promise, "I shall return." 3 days later, on 28 October, at a ceremony at the Capitol building in Tacloban, MacArthur, accompanied by President Sergio Osmeña, made Tacloban the temporary seat of the Commonwealth government and temporary capital of the Philippines until the complete liberations of the country. The provincial government of Leyte and municipal government of Tacloban were re-established. Paulo Haro was the liberation mayor of Tacloban. The first mayor of Tacloban, the first mayor of this capital upon inauguration of the Philippines Republic was Epifanio Aguirre. On 8 January, the first mayor of this capital upon inauguration of the Philippine Republic was Epifanio Aguirre. On 8 January 1960, MacArthur made his sentimental journey to Leyte. The city was proclaimed as a highly urbanized city by President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo on 4 October 2008 and ratified by the people on 18 December 2008. On 8 November 2013, Tacloban was hit by the full force of Typhoon Haiyan, Pag-asa named Yolanda, causing massive destruction across the city. Dead bodies were scattered on the streets, trees were uprooted, and 13 feet or 4 meters storm surge largely destroyed Daniel Z. Romualdez Airport, though it functioned soon after as makeshift command and evacuation center. After taking a helicopter flight over the city, U.S. Marine Brigadier General Paul Kennedy was quoted as saying, "I don't believe there is a single structure that is not destroyed or severely damaged in some way. Every single building, every single house, widespread looting and reported to have taken place in local government virtually collapsed. As many city officials were victims, President Noynoy Aquino declared a state of emergency in Tacloban. As of 14 January 2014, the official death toll stood at 6,201 persons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ronald Bautista, and now I will discuss the culture, religion, and the economy of Tacloban City. Religious of Tacloban. Tacloban City is 94.52% Roman Catholic, 0.12 Muslim, 0.83 Iglesia ni Cristo, 0.94 Evangelical, 0.49% Seventh-day Adventist, and 3.10% other. Economy of Tacloban. Tacloban is the economic center of Eastern Visayas region, which has economic largely focused on commerce, tourism, education, culture, and government in the region. Several region broadcasters are based in the city, including ABS-CBN. Economically, Tacloban is one of the fastest growing cities in the Philippines. It has one of the lowest poverty incidence rate in the country at roughly 9%, with the national poverty incidence stand at 30%, and it's the richest local government unit in the Eastern Visayas. The airport also makes the city a key regional transportation hub. In the mid-90s, Tacloban City worked out the acquisition of 237 hectares, 590 acres from its economic zone, which was finally realized and approved by the Philippine Economic Zone Authority by virtue of Presidential Proclamation number 1210 on 23 April 1988. The Eastern Visayas Agri-Industrial Growth Center, or known as EVR-GC, was the official registered as an eco-zone with the city government of Tacloban as a developer-operator. So let's move on to culture of Tacloban. The culture of Tacloban. The city celebrates Tacloban Day annually on June 30. Sangyaw is an archaic Waray word which means to herald the news. The Sangyaw Festival was created by the former First Lady Melda Marcos in the 1980s. The festival has been revived in 2008 by her nephew and currently City Mayor Alfredo Romualdez. The Sangyaw Festival invites contingents of different performing groups of various festivals in the country to compete in the side of the region. Cash prize and trophies are at stake as the Sangyaw Festival grooms itself to be a big festival to watch out in the succeeding year. Santo Niño de Leyte Fiesta. The week-long celebration peaks on June 30. The Grand Fiesta of Tacloban celebrates with the traditional turnover of ceremonies of the Teniente made by the immediate past Hermano Mayor to the coming Hermano Mayor. This is accompanied by the ritual of giving the medallion containing the names of all Hermanos, Pasados, and Estadrantes. Fireworks and grand parades mark the occasion. Every house in the city prepare a feast at opening its door to guests and well-wishers. And now, Miss Arjen Basibas will discuss the literature of Eastern Visayas.
Now, let's talk about the literature of Eastern Visayas, written by Victor Ensopo. Eastern Visayas is composed of the island of Samar, Leyte, Biliran, and the smaller outlying islands. In terms of political division, it is made up of 6 provinces, namely Northern Samar, Eastern Samar, Samar, Biliran, Leyte, and Southern Leyte. The region is humid and has no defined wet and dry seasons. It is generally agricultural and its main crops include coconut, banana, potatoes, cassava, abaca, and sugarcane. Its other source of income is fishing. Frequent occurrences of typhoons have perennially disturbed the economy of the region. The people seems to have adapted well enough. The city of Tacloban is a major center of trade and commerce and education in the region. The socio-linguistic situation. The mountain range that traverse the island of Samar, Leyte, and Biliran have influenced the development of dialectical varieties of Waray and distinct speech communities. In Leyte, the central cordillera that bisects the island has provided a condition for establishment of 2 distinct speech communities, the Waray and the Cebuano, and the growth of dialectal varieties of Waray in Biliran. A similar speech situation exists. The hilly and the mountainous terrain of Samar has contributed to the rise of Waray dialects, and likewise has nurtured a small number of Cebuano speech communities. The literature of Eastern Visayas refers to the literature written in Waray and Cebuano by writers from the region. The literature of the two, it is Waray literature that has been collected, recorded, and documented by scholars and researchers. A movement largely spurred by the interest of German press managing a university in Tacloban City, who saw the necessity of gathering and preserving the literary heritage of the region. The literature is in this light that whenever Visayan literature is written about, it is usually Waray literature that is being described. In 1668, a Spanish Jesuit of Father Ignacio Francisco Alzena documented poetic forms such as Kando, Haya, Ambahan, Kanugon, Bikal, Balak, Siday, Awit. He also described Susumaton and Pusong as a narrative forms. The flourishing economy of the region and the appearance of local publication starting in the 90s with the publication of Kaadlaon, the first Waray newspaper that saw the flourishing poetry in Waray. Sanghiran San Binisaya, 1909. Writers as well as the illustrators in the community banded together for the purpose of cultivating the Waray language in the 70s up to the present. Poetry sent to the radio station were written mostly by local farmers, housewives, and students.
Thank you, Ms. Arjan Basibas. And here is Mr. Angelito Abelio to discuss the economical problem in Tacloban City.
The economical problem in Tacloban City, Eastern Visayas of gross domestic product GRDP, nosedived from the 5.6% positive growth in 2019 or a drop of 13.2 percentage points as dragged down by the poor performance of the industry and services sector. The National Economic Development Authority Regional Office here reported in a press briefing, citing the data from the Philippine Statistics Authority NEDA Eastern Visayas Regional Director Bonifacio Uy said that the services sector was dealt with the largest low of negative 0.4% from a high 8.9% growth a year ago due to the closure of business establishment, suspensions of classes, limited operations of public transportation, and cancellation of the sea and air travel. The tourism industry has been greatly affected as regional tourist receipts plummeted by 87.7% to only PHP 3.1 billion from of PHP 25 billion in the previous year according to Mr. Uy. The trade, transportation, accommodation, food services, communication, financial activities, real estate, education subsector recorded a decline with 4 sub-sectors having double-digit decrease. The major sectors in the GRDP only agriculture, forestry, and fishing grew but at a slower pace of 0.9% from 2.1% in 2019 due to sight on the production value of commercial fisheries and aquaculture, weather disturbances, and intensified law enforcement activities. Moreover, the partial and at least 2 months of an almost total closure of operations in the restaurants, hotels, and other food processing establishment remove a key market for farmers and fishers, which demanded agri-fishery production of the official explained. RDP measures the value of goods services produced by our region.
Thank you, Mr. Angelito Abelio, and the reference of the information we gather will be discussed by Ms. Reynalyn Peregrino.
Waray language writer Pedro Asardin, a Filipino zarzuela playwright who writes in the Waray language. Francisco Alvarado, a noted playwright of zarzuela in Linete, Samarnon. He was a member and literary luminary of the Sanghiran San Binisaya organization. which was founded in 1909 to cultivate the Waray language. Norberto Romualdez, a Filipino writer, politician, jurist, and statesman. His literary works drama first is Ang Pagtabang ni San Miguel or The Aid of Saint Michael. Second is An Anak Han Manaranggot or The Tuba Gatherer's Child. Literary works poetry. First is An Eroy nga Tuna. The second Baga Durugas ngan Baga Tinuod in 1939. Third is Hanging Gadla in 1960. Fourth is Pilipinas. Fifth is Anhigugma. Sixth An Panhayhay or Ginsan Aran. Sixth is Bumangon Ka Pepe. Seventh is Just the Wind. The drama Abugho, ang duha nga sportsmen, diri daraga, diri balo, diri inasawan, up limit pati an gugma.
Thank you, Miss Rinalyn Peregrino. So, thank you for watching and listening.